Welcome back to another lesson of Logos and Letters. My name is Liam, and let's continue on with what we've been looking at after we have a quick exploration of why this knowledge is practical. Okay, of course, we're eventually going to get to that, but let me just quickly clarify a few points. What we're doing here is becoming really aware and conscious and capable of defining and properly categorizing, classifying things. Right? Those three skills in and of themselves are absolutely indispensable for so much of what we do. Where it really comes down to is when we're in a conversation with someone, an argument, a dispute, friendly back and forth, whatever it might be, we are going to be people who are more aware and clearer about how and when we speak about something properly, speak about something well, fittingly, all right? We can become more aware of when people are being a little bit deceitful or sloppy with their own speech, where clarification needs to happen, when it doesn't need to happen, especially when we're going on about definitions and naming things, okay? Because if someone gives something a name and then uses a definition that they shouldn't have used, you'll know that they're equivocating. If you know that someone's just given something a name and it is a more basic name than ought to be used, you know that they are being univocal in their speech. They're using a synonym in their speech, and you'll wonder why. Does the person not want to use the proper name because A, they don't know enough about that thing, or B, that they are worried about the predicates that come along with that? If someone calls a dog just an animal, no, it's a filthy animal, is that because they want to lower the dog to the base level of an animal? Who knows? There is so much to explore with this. This is where logic and rhetoric sort of intersect, and debating, of course, the art and science of debating is extraordinarily connected with what we're learning about. And these are things that we have to, in this current, I don't know what to call this, course. It doesn't really feel like a course to me, but in these 812 pages, things that we will cover thoroughly. Okay, it's just food for thought for now. But these are some of the things that it is helping us develop in, helping us grow stronger and more capable in. And we will see how it all plays out later on. But if that's helped you get a better idea of what's to come and where we're going, excellent. But let's continue on now after I just tidy things up a little bit. All right, I think that one just came back after I rubbed it out. All right, we're about here. Let's start from here. Tonde deuteron usion categoraitai kai ho logos katatu hypokaimenu kai tunama. Ton gartu anthropu logon katatu tinos anthropu categoraisais kai tons tu sto hosautos. All right. This is an extension of what we learned last lessons, nothing conceptually brand new. All right. Okay, so donde deuteronusion. I'm sure some have picked up that deuteronusion are the species and genus. Categoraitai kai ho logos katatu hypokaimenu kai tunama. All right, the definition, hologos, the definition, katatu hypokaimenu kai tunama. And the name, according to what? What's it going to be predicated of? The subject. Okay, both the definition and the name. So if you see kai and kai, all right, and you see me saying both and, that's the idiomatic sort of translation. So kai hologos kai tunama, right? In English, both and. All right. So why the definition and the name for secondary substances? Okay. Well, for primary substances, definition is a problem. For secondary substances, it's not. There is a clear and defined definition for what an animal is and what a man is, what a mammal is. Okay? Go to a zoo. Ask one of the full-time employees there, a zoologist, hey, do you guys have a definition for man and mammal and animal? And, the person's going to actually be offended that you're sort of wasting their time a little bit with something so obvious. Okay? Of course, there are definitions for these things. That is why you can use the definition. The definition can be predicated of a subject, tu hypokaimno, and the name. Before, it was just the name. All right? We're looking at just the name. So if we go back here, so we could give this statue the name man, and we could give this man the name man, but we couldn't give the statue the definition of man, but we could give this man the definition of man. All right? Why? Because if we use the definition of man in this, it would be an equivocation. If we said that I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 men in the room. I'm going to count them as not being in the room. They look like they're just eavesdropping, watching. So that many men in the room, I'd be equivocating. Why? Because I've applied the definition of man to all of them and to that. Right? Even though they share the name in common, they do not share the definition in common. And but if I wasn't counting this and I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 men were involved in the meeting, that's fine. If I said 10 animals were involved in the meeting, all right, then I would probably have to count these guys too, but it would still work because they can share the definition of animal. All right. Now we go back to this. If you look at any particular subject, you are free. You are completely free to define them, hoilogos, by their secondary substances, and you're free to name them by their secondary substances. Nothing wrong with that. Let's continue on. So, ton gar tu anthropu logon kata tu tinos anthropu categorizais. So you can, so you would, you shall, define a particular man by the definition of man. And kai ton tu stoio hosautos. And of animal the same way. Alright, let's do one more thought. Hosta uk an ie he usia ton en hypokaimnoi. Uk idion de tuto tes usias. Alla kai he diaphora ton me en hypokaimnoi estin. Here we go. This is what I want to finish on. To keep this lesson sort of the same length as the last one. Okay? Hosta uk an ie he usia ton en hypokaimnoi. Right? So no one should say that the substance is in the subject. It is not unique. Uk idion de tuto tes usias, right? It's not unique to the substance that it is not in a subject. Why? Alla kai he diaphora ton meien hypokaimenoi esti. So you see these ton keep popping up. Talking about the subjects here, they're not in the subject. The diaphora, hey diaphora. Diaphora is differential. All right, it's what makes a one species different from another species in a genus. So we have camel and humans here. What do they share in common besides being animals? Mammals. All right, camels produce milk. They give birth to live young, and human beings do the same thing. Okay, so the women will, do these roles, men will have these roles, and we find similarities with our other mammal counterparts, right? With the way things operate. Men will be usually larger than women. Women will usually have the nurturing and child rearing role. Okay, we can see that in lions. We can see that in what's another good example? Maybe something's not a quadruped. Whales. Okay, even in whales. So, like whales being milk producing and live birth, you get the picture. So, what makes mammals different from, say, let's have a look here. Is there one there? Nope. I'm looking for a reptile. Is there one here? But you get the idea. What's the difference between what makes it different between a mammal and a reptile? Well, you can say one is endothermic, one is ectothermic, or one is cold-blooded, one is warm-blooded. And that's a good point. A differential, okay, is what is making those things unique, right? Hey, diaphora. So being cold-blooded is a differential. And the plural, also differential, but spelt with an AE at the end, would be milk-producing and warm-blooded. All right, so if you don't fit those two criteria, forget about being a mammal. If you lay eggs, forget about being a mammal. We don't really lay eggs. Yeah. Okay. So if I finish off on one thing with diaphora, it's going to be this. This is the only thing I want to finish off with. I need some space. This will do. Okay. Diagram will work. So you have a genus, right? In the genus of animal, you have these branches, right? You have these different branches. All right. Now let's say, this looks like a creepy spider, but let's just say that here we have reptiles, okay? And here we have mammals, all right? And then you can create different ones over here. But let's just focus on this. This is what I was explaining before. The genus is broken up here. Ask yourself, why is it broken up? Because we have a differential. All right, I'm not going to try and write a full word with this. It's going to get messy. We have a differential, a diaphora, which makes this split up. All right, not just conceptually, but a physical thing, right? So if you lay, we've got all these animals. Some lay eggs, so they go into a specific area. Some are cold-blooded, so they go into a different group. Some are warm-blooded, so they go into this group. Some lay live young, so they go into this group. They produce milk, they go into this group. Okay, they have fur. Right? If you have fur or hair, right, you're not going to be a snake. You're going to be a mammal. All right, these are differential. These are things that separate us. A really classical example, if I stop being so modern for a second, is rational soul. All right, if we go back to this strange room, this tense-looking room, what's the differential that separates these animals from these bipedal animals? A rational soul. Okay, this pigeon isn't reasoning much about what's going on. Instincts and memory and pleasure and pain are sort of steering it to and fro. It's got some memory, of course, and preferences to a degree, I'll admit that. But it's not computing the things the way these bipeds are. We have a rational soul. That rational soul is like chief differential. All right, it's the king of all of them. It is a sine qua non. There's nothing at its level, right? And we possess it. It's what separates us from the other mammals, really. If I had a picture of a human being with other mammals, so we can see Noah, and maybe that's Jeth, with all these other mammals. What makes these two distinct from all these? You could say, oh, they're bipedal. I mean, sure, but their souls, their rational souls, are incredibly different to all the others. All right. Even though their brains might be as large, even though their hearts might be bigger, they might, have larger bones, stronger muscles, and whatnot. These two created this. All right. These two do this and see this as a sign. All right. Human beings have a rational soul. They're capable of all of this. They're on top of the mountains of Ararat, or wherever it was called, and they are in a pact with a all-powerful God. All right. Performing a ritual, a holocaust, right? And the smoke is going up, and the Elohim smelt a pleasant odor and was pleased. Okay, and look at all these mammals, much different in differentia to this. Okay, so that's the final point I wanted to make with differentia. They're the reason why this occurs. All right, it's cleaner over this side, so it's the reason why this occurs. It's what makes one species different from another inside a genus. It's what makes one species different from another inside a genus. And I'll probably leave it there. Okay. Here are some examples. Dogar pesdon. All right. Footed. Kaito dipun. Two-footed. Bipedal. Gath hypokaimenal men legatai. Tu anthropu. En hypokaimenoi deukestin. All right. Now, I'll go over this in the next lesson, but I'm going to quickly say here, he's speaking about it conceptually. En hypokaimenoi deukestin. In a substance, it's not. You would look at me and say, I'm some rare species of fool if I thought that it was true that having 2 feet wasn't in a human, right? Because we can physically see and touch the 2 feet that we have, right? He's just speaking about it conceptually. Bipedalness, all right? Two-footedness, or footedness, is not actually in a human being. Yes, you have 2 feet, but you don't have the concept, the manifestation of bipedalness in your body. Okay? And that is agreeable, reasonable, and something that we can move on from. Yes, you do have 2 feet. If you do, you might not. Naturally, you have 2 feet. And that can be predicated, kath hypokaimenal men legatai. That can be said of a man, right, to have 2 feet. But there is no special ethereal, divine, fifth element sort of two-footedness in your body, like next to your kidneys, okay, or surrounding your heart. There's just a layer of two-footedness, right? Obviously, that's not the case, and that's why he says it, all right? But yes, it can be predicated because that is the way that the primary substance manifests itself with the two-footedness, right? All right. Leave it there. Quite dense. I'll quickly go over that with new and different examples next lesson before I dive into this next part. But I hope that's clear. You know, you can see what a fine line of precision we need to walk in all these lessons. Every word that we say and choose needs to be chosen deliberately. And that's a really good skill to practice. It can be, I'll admit, it can be a bit of a pain and a headache to always try and be so precise with your words. But it does get easier. It does get more natural. Pausing for thought begins to feel less strange. And I will make one modern commentary, contemporary commentary. Who knows how far in the future someone is listening to this. I might have expired by the time someone listens to this. However, at this time, what is it? It's like 5:46 a.m. Saturday, 25th of April, year of our Lord 2026. Speaking very quickly is seen favorably in our current day. The ability to speak really quick and flow and spit out words in general impresses people. Pausing for your thoughts is seen as an oddity. It's seen as something not preferential, and there are many reasons for that, and I'm not going to go into those. So for someone who is studying logic or language, Greek, whatever it might be, pausing for thought becomes something that is a byproduct of it. And if you think to yourself, oh, listen to me, I choose my words carefully and I'm making these pauses. I should just be flowing. I should just be letting these words stream, okay? I'm thinking of that, what's that? I used to have it on my wall. Tu kai apoglosses melitos glukion rinaude. I still do have it on my wall. The words flow sweeter than honey from your mouth, right? Not everything that glitters is gold, okay? Not everything that sounds sweet is sweet. If you're someone who is studying and trying to become more articulate, if you notice that you're pausing to choose the most appropriate word and be precise, there is nothing wrong with that. Do not let yourself be swept up by the idea of that speaking quickly is the best way to speak. It certainly is not, in the humble opinion of this guide, of this midwife of wisdom. I would say that it certainly is not. Not everything that glitters is gold. Okay, so if you're swept up by the idea that you should be speaking quickly and without pause and without break, I would push back against that and say that quality of speech is more important than the quantity of speech. Quantity of speech is important when you're practicing speech. I'll give you that. But when we go word for word, we want the quality of our words to be more precise so that we don't make errors. Someone who says 100 things and makes no errors is far superior to the person who says 1,000 things and makes 100 errors. All right? And we'll leave it at that. That's just a bit of commentary on my times. If you agree with that, let me know. If you disagree with that, please let me know. Perhaps I'm not seeing things from a perspective that would enlighten me or change my opinion. So yeah, feel free to share those thoughts. As always, semper fortis in opere tuo. My name is Liam, and thank you for watching.